So for years, Nvidia's dominance in artificial intelligence hardware came from software lock-in, not just from fast chips. Nvidia's CUDA ecosystem deeply embedded in PyTorch, which is an open source machine learning framework, created switching costs so high that even viable alternatives struggled to break through. So for those unaware, CUDA is a proprietary parallel computing platform and application programming interface API model developed by Nvidia. But now Google is going straight for the software moat itself. According to people familiar with the matter, Alphabet is developing an initiative internally called TorchTPU to make its tensor processing units, TPUs, run PyTorch natively and efficiently. That's significant because PyTorch is the world's most widely used AI development framework, relied on by researchers and enterprises alike to train and deploy modern models. And here is the full picture. TPU plus PyTorch compatibility equals low switching cost. Google's TPUs have long been powerful alternatives to Nvidia GPUs, especially on cost and energy efficiency. But they lagged in adoption because developers had to rework PyTorch-based code to run on Google's JAX ecosystem. Google's JAX is a Python library for high-performance numerical computing and machine learning research. Now, the new Torch TPU effort aims to eliminate that very obstacle by bringing PyTorch support directly to TPUs. Google is working with Meta, that actually the steward of PyTorch itself. Meta Platforms, which leads PyTorch development, is collaborating with Google to accelerate this compatibility work. So a closer alliance between the two of the world's most influential AI players isn't accidental. It's a strategic maneuver to diversify away from Nvidia's chips and pricing power. Google may open source parts of Torch TPU. Sources indicate Google is considering open sourcing components of the project to speed adoption and community trust, which is exactly the opposite of Nvidia's historically proprietary CUDA approach. Nvidia's hardware horsepower, especially its Blackwell class GPUs, remains elite, particularly for high-end model training. But the industry has long recognized that its software ecosystem, which is CUDA plus PyTorch optimization, is the company's biggest defensive advantage in the AI compute market. So what Google is targeting is that software moat. PyTorch runs almost everywhere in AI development. CUDA has been Nvidia's gatekeeper. TorchTPU threatens to remove that very gate. So if developers can run PyTorch models without rewriting code or sacrificing performance, the biggest barrier to leaving Nvidia completely disappears. Competition is no longer about chips versus chips. It's about ecosystems versus ecosystems. And Google just pushed a wedge into Nvidia's dominant stack. Meta's involvement raises the stakes. By aligning PyTorch with TPU support, Meta gains leverage, lower inference cost, more infrastructure negotiating power, and reduced dependency on Nvidia. Potential market impact already shows. Reports suggest that just the prospect of this competition has wiped around $250 billion worth of Nvidia's market valuation, signaling investor concern about future compute monoculities. Basically, Google Cloud's TPU push gets very real. What used to be internal infrastructure for Gemini and other products is now a very genuine cloud AI compute alternative with direct sales into customer data centers and expanded developer support. This is more than a Google Nvidia tussle. No, it actually signals a shift in how AI infrastructure will evolve. Developers win when switching costs fail. Cloud providers win by offering true hardware choice. AI startups win because infrastructure becomes a competitive, not a monopolized market. If Torch TPU lives up to its promise, we could see enterprise AI workloads increasingly split between GPUs for complex high-end training, TPUs for cost-efficient inference and scale. That's actually a multi-ecosystem future, not just one dominated by Nvidia. And finally, here is the front page take. But let's not forget, Radeon Open Compute before Google's move. Developers already had some alternative to Nvidia's CUDA ecosystem, AMD's open source ROCm platform, which essentially supports PyTorch and other machine learning frameworks. Now let's add Google's TorchTPU project, backed by collaboration with Meta. Doesn't just add more competition, it fundamentally reframes the AI compute battlefield from a hardware race into a software and ecosystem war. So far, Nvidia's dominance was about developers being unable to leave the CUDA PyTorch world without massive cost. Google is removing that very friction. If Google succeeds, the AI compute landscape enters a true multi-vendor era, which means lower costs for AI infrastructure, faster innovation cycles, more choices for enterprises, and a shrinking software moat for Nvidia. This is not incremental competition. This is actually the first structural challenge to the AI chip monopoly that has shaped the industry for the last decade. And this is Front Page by AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and of course, always remember, think AI, think compute, think AIM.